The stars looked peaceful through the window of the new soul. Captain Minji stood on the bridge, watching the vast emptiness of space. She felt excited and nervous at the same time. Today was special. Today, humans would meet a new alien race. For the first time, the Vorthic Empire had sent messages to Earth 6 months ago. They wanted to talk. They wanted to trade. The messages seemed friendly enough. Earth's leaders decided to send a peaceful mission to make contact. They chose Minji to lead it because she was good at talking to people and solving problems. Minji was not alone on this journey. Her family came with her. Her husband Jinwoo worked as the ship's main engineer. He knew everything about how the ship worked. Their daughter Hyeri was 16 years old and loved studying alien life. She hoped to become a scientist who studied aliens. Their son Dongyuk was 12 and curious about everything. He wanted to see real aliens up close. The new soul carried 2,847 people. Most were diplomats, scientists, and crew members. Some brought their families too. Everyone felt hopeful about this mission. They believed they were making history. Jinwoo walked onto the bridge and stood beside his wife. He smiled at her. "The engines are running perfectly," he said. "We should reach the meeting point in 2 hours." Minji nodded. She looked at the star charts on the screen. The Vorthek had chosen a neutral location for the meeting. It was empty space between their territory and human space. This seemed fair to everyone. Hyeri came running onto the bridge. She carried a thick book about alien biology. "Mom, do you think the Vorthek will let me study their biology? I have so many questions." "Maybe," Minji said with a laugh. "But remember, we need to be polite first. We don't know their customs yet." Dongyuk followed his sister. He looked excited. "Dad, will their ships look different from ours? Will they have better weapons?" Jinwoo put his hand on his son's shoulder. "We're not here to compare weapons, son. We're here to make friends." The communication officer called out from her station. "Captain, I'm receiving a message from the Vorthek fleet. They're waiting for us at the meeting coordinates." Minji straightened her uniform. "Good. Send a reply. Tell them we'll be there soon and that we come in peace." As the new soul traveled through space, Minji felt proud of her crew and her family. Earth had chosen well for this mission. They had the best diplomats, the smartest scientists, and the most peaceful intentions. What could go wrong? 2 hours later, the Vorthik ships appeared on their screens. There were 5 large vessels. They looked dark and angular, very different from human ships. Human ships were built for exploration and comfort. These looked built for war. "They're bigger than our ships," the tactical officer said with worry in his voice. "Size doesn't matter," Minji replied. "We're here to talk, not fight." She opened a communication channel. "Vorthek Fleet. This is Captain Minji of the Earthship New Soul. We're honored to meet you today." A harsh voice answered. The alien spoke. Broken human language. "Human ship, you are small. You are weak. Why do you come here?" Minji felt confused by the response, but she stayed calm. "We come to talk about peace between our peoples. We want to trade and learn from each other." Laughter came through the speakers. It sounded cruel and cold. "Peace? Trade? You know nothing, small humans." Jinwoo frowned. "This doesn't feel right," he whispered to his wife. Hyeri and Dongyuk stood near the back of the bridge. They looked worried too. This was not going as anyone expected. "Perhaps there's a translation error," Minji said to her crew. She spoke to the Vorthok again. "We bring gifts from Earth. We want to show you our friendship." "We see your gifts," the alien voice said. "We see your ship. We see your weak weapons. You are nothing." Red lights suddenly flashed on the tactical screen. "Captain," the weapons officer shouted. "They're charging their weapons, all 5 ships." Minji's heart started beating fast. "Raise our shields. Send a message to Earth immediately." But it was too late. The Vorthek ships fired together. Bright green energy beams hit the new soul from all sides. The ship shook violently. People fell to the floor. Lights flickered and went out. "Shields are down," someone screamed. "Hull breach on decks 5 through 12. Jinwoo ran to his engineering station. I need to get to the engine room, he told Minji. No, she grabbed his arm. It's too dangerous. Another wave of weapons fire hit the ship. This time, the bridge filled with smoke. Sparks flew from damaged computers. The ship was dying around them. Hayari held her brother's hand tightly. Both children were crying now. They didn't understand why this was happening. The aliens were supposed to be friendly. All hands abandon ship. Minji ordered over the ship's speakers. Get to the escape pods now. But most of the escape pods were already destroyed. The Vorthek weapons were too powerful. They cut through the ship like paper. Jinwoo kissed his wife quickly. I love you, he said. Then he ran toward the engine room to try to save the ship. Minji grabbed her children. Come on, we need to find an escape pod. They ran through hallways filled with smoke and fire. Bodies lay everywhere. Friends and colleagues that Minji had known for years were dead or dying. The peaceful mission had become a nightmare. They reached the escape pod section. Only 3 pods remained undamaged. Hundreds of people were trying to get into them. There wasn't enough room for everyone. Take my children. Minji shouted to the officer loading one pod. Please. But before she could push Hayari and Dongyuk into the pod, another blast hit that section of the ship. The explosion threw everyone against the walls. When Minji woke up, her children were gone. The escape pod section was destroyed. She crawled through the wreckage, calling their names. Hayari, Dongyuk! But there was no answer. Only silence and death. The ship continued to break apart around her. She found one last working escape pod. Her hands shook as she climbed inside. Through the small window, she could see the Vorthak ship still firing at the wreckage of the New Soul. They were making sure nothing survived. As her escape pod drifted away, Minji watched her ship die. Her family was gone, her crew was gone. 2,847 people had come here in peace. Now only she remained alive. The Vorthek ship stayed for another hour, destroying every piece of wreckage. Then they left, returning to their own space. They had sent a message to humanity, but not the one Earth expected. Minji floated alone in the dark. She held her daughter's research journal, the only thing she had managed to grab before the ship died. Inside the journal, Hayari had written, I hope the aliens will be our friends. 3 days later, an Earth patrol ship found Minji's escape pod. She was barely alive, but she was breathing. The rescue team thought she was lucky to survive. They were wrong. Surviving was not lucky. Surviving meant she would have to live with what she had seen. Surviving meant she would remember every moment of her family's death. As the rescue ship carried her back to Earth, Minji made a promise to herself. The Vorthak had made a mistake. They had let one human live. They would regret that mistake for the rest of their existence, however long that existence might be. 6 months had passed since the New Soul was destroyed. Minji sat in a small room at Earth's military headquarters. The walls were white and empty. She stared at them for hours every day, seeing nothing. Admiral Taeyun walked into the room. He was an old friend of Minji's family. He had known her since she was young. Seeing her like this broke his heart. Minji, he said softly, you need to eat something. She didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on the wall. They're not coming back, she whispered. Taeyun sat down beside her. No, they're not, but you're still here. Your family would want you to live. For the first time in weeks, Minji turned to look at him. Her eyes were red and empty. Why am I still here, Taeyun? Why did I survive when they didn't? The Admiral had no answer. He had asked himself the same question many times. Random chance, luck, fate, none of these words help. The government wants to give you a medal, he said, for surviving, for bringing back information about the Vorthek. Minji laughed, but it sounded broken. A medal for watching my family die. The Galactic Council is investigating the incident, Taeyun told her. They say it was a misunderstanding. The Vorthek claim they thought we were attacking them. A misunderstanding. Minji's voice was flat and cold. They destroyed a peaceful ship. They killed children. They killed my children. Taeyun had seen the reports. The Vorthak had filed an official complaint with the Galactic Council. They said humans had entered their space with weapons. They said they acted in self-defense. It was all lies, but the Council believed them. The Council doesn't want a war, Taeyun explained. They think both sides made mistakes. They want us to move on? Move on? Minji stood up suddenly. Her hands were shaking with anger. They want me to move on from my murdered family. Dr. Soman knocked on the door and entered. She was a military psychiatrist who had been trying to help Minji for months. She carried a cup of tea and some papers. How are you feeling today, Minji? Dr. Soman asked. How do you think I'm feeling? Minji snapped. My husband is dead, my children are dead, and everyone wants me to pretend it doesn't matter. Dr. Soman set down the tea. No one wants you to pretend. We want you to heal. We want you to find a way to live with this pain. I don't want to live with it, Minji said. I want to do something about it. Admiral Taeyun and Dr. Soman exchanged worried looks. They had been afraid of this. Minji was not healing. She was getting angrier. The Vorthak are a powerful species, Taeyun said carefully. They have many ships and weapons. Earth cannot fight them alone. Then Earth is weak. Minji replied, just like they said we were. Dr. Soman tried a different approach. Minji, revenge won't bring your family back. It will only create more pain. Minji picked up Hyeri's research journal from the table. She had read it hundreds of times. Her daughter's innocent words about making friends with aliens now seemed like a cruel joke. You know what my daughter wrote in here? Minji asked. She opened the journal to a page near the end. She wrote that she hoped aliens would teach us new things. She thought they would help make the universe better. Her voice broke as she continued reading. She was excited to meet them. She thought they would be wonderful. Tears ran down her face, but her expression remained hard. She died believing in peace. She died because we were naive. Admiral Taeyun stood up. Minji, you can't blame yourself for what happened. I don't blame myself, she said. I blame the Vorthak. And I blame everyone who's letting them get away with it. Over the next few weeks, Minji stopped coming to her therapy sessions. She stopped talking to Admiral Taeyun. She spent all her time in the military archives, reading about the Vorthak. She learned their language. She studied their culture. She read every report about their military strength. The more she learned, the angrier she became. The Vorthak were not peaceful. They had destroyed other ships before. They had attacked trading vessels from different species. But each time they claimed self-defense. Each time the Galactic Council believed them. Minji found records of 12 other incidents. Ships that had gone missing in Vorthak space. Colonies that had stopped sending messages. The pattern was clear to anyone who bothered to look, but no one wanted to look. The Galactic Council preferred to believe in peace. War was bad for trade. War was expensive. It was easier to call each incident a misunderstanding. One night, Dr. Soman found Minji in the archives. It was 3 a.m. Minji was surrounded by files and computer screens. You haven't slept in days, Dr. Soman said. Sleep is a waste of time, Minji replied without looking up. What are you doing here, Minji? Learning, Minji pointed to the screens. Learning about our enemies. Dr. Soman sat down across from her. The Vorthak aren't our enemies. The government has made that clear. Minji finally looked at her. The government is wrong. The council is wrong. Everyone is wrong except me? Or maybe your grief is making you see enemies where there are none? Dr. Soman suggested gently. Minji slammed her hand on the table. Don't you dare say this is just grief. She pulled up a file on her computer. Look at this. 3 years ago, a Vorthak ship destroyed a research vessel from the Kelani Republic. 50 scientists died. The Vorthak claimed the ship was spying on them. She opened another file. 2 years ago, they attacked a trade convoy from the Mexeri Federation. 200 merchants died. They said the convoy was carrying weapons. File after file appeared on the screen. Every time it's the same story. Every time they claim self-defense. Every time the council does nothing. Dr. Soman looked at the evidence. It was disturbing, but it didn't prove a conspiracy. Maybe they're just a paranoid species. Maybe they're afraid of outsiders. Or maybe they're killers, Minji said coldly. Maybe they enjoy it. The next morning, Admiral Taeyun found Minji's quarters empty. Her few belongings were gone. She had left her military uniform folded neatly on the bed. On top of it was a note. The note was short. The military cannot help my family. The government cannot help my family? The council cannot help my family. I will help my family myself. Taeyun immediately started searching for her. He checked the spaceports, the transport records, everything. But Minji had vanished completely. She had resigned from the military. She had given up her rank, her pension, everything. She had walked away from the only life she had ever known. 3 weeks later, reports started coming in from the outer colonies. Someone was asking questions about the Vorthek. Someone was buying information from smugglers and criminals. Someone was learning things that weren't in any official file. Taeyun knew it was Minji. He also knew there was nothing he could do to stop her. Dr. Soman visited him in his office. "We have to find her," she said. "She's not thinking clearly. Her grief is driving her to do something dangerous." "Maybe," Taeyun said quietly. "Or maybe she's the only one thinking clearly." He showed Dr. Soman the files Minji had been studying. The pattern of Vorthek attacks, the Council's refusal to investigate, the growing evidence that something was very wrong. "What if she's right?" Taeyun asked. "What if the Vorthek really are our enemies?" Dr. Soman had no answer. She had spent months trying to help Minji heal from her trauma. But what if the trauma was real? What if the danger was real? That night, both of them wondered the same thing. Was Minji a broken woman, seeking impossible revenge? Or was she the only person brave enough to see the truth? In the dark spaces between stars, Minji was finding her own answers. She had money saved from her years in the military. She had contacts in places the government didn't know about. And she had something more powerful than both. The absolute certainty that she was right. The Vorthek had made a mistake when they let her live. They had created their own worst enemy. They just didn't know it yet. Minji had been living in the shadows for 3 months. She stayed in cheap hotels on the outer rim colonies. She paid with untraceable credits. She talked to people the government would never meet: smugglers, pirates, information brokers, mercenaries. These people lived outside the law, but they knew things. They had been in Vorthek space. They had seen things that never made it into official reports, on a dirty space station called Haven Port. Minji met a man named Quan. He was a former Earth military pilot who had been discharged for breaking orders. Now he transported illegal cargo for anyone who paid him enough. "You're asking dangerous questions," Quan told her over a drink in a dark bar. "The Vorthek don't like visitors." "Tell me what you've seen," Minji said. Quan looked around the bar to make sure no one was listening. "I've been to their space 3 times. Each time I saw the same thing, ship graveyards." "What do you mean?" "Floating wrecks, hundreds of them. Ships from 12 different species, all destroyed by Vorthek weapons." Quan's voice was quiet and scared. "They don't just attack ships that threaten them. They attack everything." Minji felt her heart beating. "Faster. Did you take pictures? Records? Are you crazy?" "If they caught me recording, they would have killed me." Quan finished his drink. "But I remember what I saw. Some of those wrecks were passenger ships. Some were medical vessels, ships that couldn't threaten anyone." After Quan left, Minji sat alone in the bar. She thought about what he had told her. Ship graveyards. Hundreds of destroyed vessels. The Vorthek were not just paranoid. They were killers. The next week, she found another source. A woman named Dury who used to work for a trading company. Her ship had been attacked by Vorthek raiders 2 years ago. She was the only survivor. "They didn't want our cargo," Dury explained. "They just wanted to kill us. They fired on our escape pods. They hunted us down one by one." "Why?" Minji asked. "For fun," Dury said bitterly. "I heard them laughing over the radio as they killed my friends." Minji collected dozens of stories like this. Each one painted the same picture. The Vorthak were not misunderstood. They were not afraid. They were predators who enjoyed causing pain, but stories were not enough. Minji needed proof. She needed evidence that Earth's government could not ignore. She used her contacts to buy salvaged Vorthak technology. Computer cores from destroyed ships, weapon fragments, communication devices. Everything was expensive and dangerous to obtain, but she paid whatever was asked. In a hidden workshop on a remote asteroid. Minji studied the technology with help from black market experts. Slowly, they began to decode Vorthak data files. What they found was worse than anything Minji had imagined. The Vorthak military kept detailed records of their attacks. They had recordings of their victims' last moments. They had files full of torture techniques used on captured prisoners. They had plans for future raids, but the worst discovery was in a file labeled Final Solution, Pest Species. Minji stared at the translated document for hours. It was a complete plan for the invasion and extermination of human space. Every human world was listed. Every human colony was marked for destruction. The attack on the New Sol had not been random. It had been a test. The Vorthak had been testing their new weapons on human targets. They wanted to see how quickly they could kill humans. They wanted to see how much pain they could cause. The document contained detailed analysis of human biology. It explained which weapons caused the most suffering. It described how to break human morale by targeting families first. Minji's hands shook as she read her daughter's name in the file. Hayari had been identified as a juvenile specimen during the attack. The Vorthak had wanted to capture her alive for experiments. Only the destruction of the ship had prevented this. The rage that filled Minji was unlike anything she had ever felt. It was pure and clean and absolute. Every cell in her body screamed for revenge. She copied the files and returned to Earth immediately. She contacted Admiral Taeyun through secure channels and arranged a secret meeting. They met in an abandoned warehouse outside the capital city. Taeyun came alone, as Minji had requested. "You look terrible," he said when he saw her. Minji had lost weight. Her hair was longer and unkempt. Her eyes had a wild look that worried him. "I found something," she said without greeting him. "Something the government needs to see." She handed him a datapad containing the translated Vorthak files. Taeyun read for several minutes. His face grew pale as he continued. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "Does it matter? Is it real or not?" Taeyun studied the technical details. The language patterns, the military codes. Everything looked authentic. "If this is real," he said slowly, "then we're in terrible danger." "It's real," Minji assured him. "The Vorthak are planning to wipe out humanity. Every man, woman, and child. They want us extinct." Taeyun was quiet for a long time. He had always hoped that the New Sol incident was an isolated event, a tragic mistake. But this evidence showed a pattern of calculated genocide. "I'll take this to the Defense Council immediately," he said. "Will they listen?" "They'll have to listen. This changes everything." But the Defense Council meeting did not go as Taeyun hoped. Half the members refused to believe the evidence was real. They said it was too convenient. They said Minji had probably forged it to justify her need for revenge. General Byung-ho was one of the few who took the threat seriously. "Even if there's only a small chance this is real, we have to act," he argued. "Act how?" asked Defense Minister Park. "Start a war based on stolen documents that might be fake?" "The documents are real," Taeyun insisted. "I've had our best analysts examine them." "Your analysts are military people," Minister Park replied. "They want to believe we have enemies. It makes their jobs more important." The argument continued for hours. In the end, the council voted to send the evidence to the Galactic Council for review. They would wait for an official investigation before taking any action. When Taeyun told Minji about the decision, she was not surprised. "They're cowards," she said simply. "They're cautious," Taeyun corrected. "Starting a war is not something to do lightly." "The war has already started," Minji replied. The Vorthik started it when they killed my family. Earth just hasn't figured that out yet. That night, Minji made a decision. If the government would not act, she would act alone. If Earth's leaders were too weak to protect humanity, she would find people who were strong enough. She began reaching out to others who had lost family to alien attacks, veterans who had been discharged for being too aggressive, scientists who had been censored for their research. Anyone who understood that sometimes violence was the only answer. The government could wait for the Galactic Council to make a decision. Minji would not wait. Every day they delayed was another day the Vorthik used to prepare their invasion. She thought about her daughter's journal again. Hyeri had believed in peace and friendship. She had died because of that belief. Minji would not make the same mistake. She had learned the truth about the universe. The strong survived. The weak died. The Vorthik thought humans were weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In a small apartment in the city, Minji began planning. She drew maps of Vorthak space. She made lists of targets. She calculated how much damage a small, dedicated group could do. The Vorthak had awakened something in humanity that they did not understand. They had created an enemy that would never stop, never rest, never forgive. They had made their first and last mistake. They had let Minji live. Now she would make sure they regretted that mistake for whatever time they had left. Minji's first recruit was Wujin. He had been a special forces operator until he disobeyed orders during a hostage rescue. His commanders said he used too much violence. Wujin said he used exactly the right amount. They met in a bar on a space station near the Vorthik border. Wujin was drinking alone, staring at the bottom of his glass like it held answers to questions he didn't want to ask. I heard about what happened to your team, Minji said, sitting down across from him. Wujin looked up with red eyes. My team is dead. Vorthak raiders hit our transport 6 months ago. I was on leave. Lucky me. I'm sorry for your loss. Are you? Wujin studied her face. Or are you here because you want something? Minji placed a data pad on the table. It contained photos of the destroyed New Soul and her family's death certificates. I want the same thing you want, she said. Wujin read the information slowly. When he finished, he looked at Minji with new understanding. You're the captain from the New Soul, the survivor. I'm the one they left alive by mistake. What do you want from me? Help me make them pay for that mistake. Wujin was quiet for a long time. Then he smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had finally found his purpose. When do we start? Their second recruit was Nari, a weapons engineer who had been fired from the military for designing weapons that were too brutal. She had been working for criminal organizations ever since, building weapons that could kill in interesting ways. The military doesn't appreciate innovation, Nari told them in her hidden workshop. They want clean weapons that kill politely. I prefer weapons that send messages. She showed them her latest creation, a modified plasma charge that could cut through Vorthik ship armor like paper. This will hurt them, she said with satisfaction. This will hurt them very much. Kyung-soo joined them next. He was a cyber warfare specialist who had been discharged for hacking into classified alien databases. The military said he was reckless. Kyung-soo said he was curious. I know their computer systems, he told the group. I can get into their ships, their stations, their communication networks. I can make them blind and deaf when we need them to. Within 3 months, their group had grown to 12 people. All of them had lost someone to alien attacks. All of them had been rejected by the military for being too aggressive. All of them wanted revenge more than they wanted to live. Minji named their organization The Reckoning. Their mission was simple: make the Vorthak pay for every human life they had taken. Their first operation was a supply convoy near the border. 3 Vorthak cargo ships carrying weapons and ammunition to their forward bases. Wujin led the assault team while Kyung-soo disabled the ship's defenses from a hidden location. Nari had built special bombs that would destroy the cargo without leaving evidence of human involvement. The attack lasted only 20 minutes. When it was over, 3 Vorthik supply ships were floating wreckage. 67 Vorthak crew members were dead, but the reckoning was just getting started. Over the next 6 months, they struck again and again. They destroyed Vorthak mining operations. They assassinated Vorthak military leaders. They stole advanced technology from Vorthak research stations. Each attack was carefully planned and perfectly executed. The reckoning struck fast and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They left no survivors and no evidence. The Vorthak military began increasing security around their installations. They started traveling in larger groups. They became more careful about where they went. But they also became more angry. The first retaliation came without warning. Vorthak raiders attacked a human trading post called New Bizan. They killed everyone: men, women, children, even the animals. They burned everything and left the ruins as a message. Earth's government was horrified. They demanded answers from the Vorthak Empire. The Vorthak replied that they were defending themselves against human terrorism. We did not start this violence. The Vorthak ambassador told the Galactic Council, "Humans attacked us first. We are only protecting our people." The Galactic Council accepted this explanation. They called for both sides to show restraint. They organized peace talks that nobody attended. Meanwhile, more humans joined the reckoning. Jiho had been a diplomat working on the trading post when the Vorthak attacked. He survived by hiding in a storage room for 3 days. When rescue ships found him, he was surrounded by the bodies of his colleagues and their families. "I spent my whole career believing in peace," he told Minji. "I thought diplomacy could solve any problem. I was wrong." Yunji was a ship captain whose crew had been captured by Vorthak slavers. She had escaped, but her crew was still somewhere in Vorthak space, probably being tortured for entertainment. "The government won't help me rescue them," she said. "They say it would be too provocative, so I'll provoke them myself." Each new member brought skills and resources. Each new attack became more sophisticated and more devastating. The Reckoning learned to think like the Vorthak. They studied Vorthak tactics and turned them back against their creators. They used Vorthak weapons stolen from defeated enemies. They adopted Vorthak communication codes to confuse their responses, but the Vorthak were learning too. Their second major retaliation targeted a human colony called New Guangzhou. This time, they didn't just kill everyone quickly. They took their time. They broadcast the torture and murder of 30,000 colonists across all human communication networks. The message was clear: stop the terrorism or more innocents will die. Earth's government panicked. They declared the Reckoning a terrorist organization. They offered rewards for information leading to the capture of its members. They begged the Galactic Council to intervene, but the attacks continued. Admiral Taeyun received a secret message from Minji 3 weeks after the New Guangzhou massacre. "Meet me at the old coordinates," the message said. "Come alone." They met in the same abandoned warehouse where Minji had first shown him the Vorthak files, but this time she was not alone. Wujin and Nari stood behind her, watching for threats. "You need to stop this," Taeyun told her immediately. "Innocent people are dying because of what you're doing." "Innocent people were already dying," Minji replied calmly. "The only difference is that now everyone can see it. The government will hunt you down. They'll put you in prison or worse." "Let them try." Minji's voice was cold and confident. "We have support from people the government doesn't even know exist." She was right. The Reckoning had grown far beyond its original 12 members. Across human space, cells of supporters provided information, supplies, and safe houses. Many were military personnel who agreed with the Reckoning's mission but couldn't act openly. "This has to end somewhere," Taeyun said desperately. "You can't fight an entire empire with a few dozen people." "Watch us," Wujin said from behind Minji. Taeyun looked at his old friend and saw a stranger. The woman he had known was gone, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. "What happened to you, Minji? What did they turn you into?" For a moment, her expression softened. "They turned me into what I needed to become," she said quietly. "They turned me into someone who could protect humanity when no one else would." "By becoming a terrorist?" By becoming a soldier, she corrected. The war started when they killed my family. I'm just the first one fighting back. After Taeyun left, Nari approached Minji with concern. He'll report our location to the government, she said. No, he won't, Minji replied with certainty. He's a good man, but he's also a smart man. He knows we're right, even if he won't admit it. She was correct. Taeyun filed no report about the meeting. Instead, he began quietly reviewing the evidence Minji had given him months earlier. He studied the Vorthak invasion plans. He analyzed their attack patterns. The more he studied, the more convinced he became that Minji was right. The Vorthak were planning genocide. The government's peaceful approach was not just naive, it was suicidal. Other people in the military were reaching the same conclusion. General Byung-ho had been building his own network of supporters who believed Earth needed to prepare for war. The Reckoning's attacks were serving a purpose beyond simple revenge. They were forcing the Vorthak to show their true nature. Every retaliation made it harder for the government to pretend this was all a misunderstanding in the shadows between worlds. A civil war was beginning within humanity itself. On one side stood those who still believed in peace and diplomacy. On the other stood those who had learned that sometimes survival required becoming something terrible. Minji stood at the center of this divide, watching both sides with cold calculation. She had lost her family, her career, her old life. But she had gained something more valuable, absolute clarity, about what needed to be done. The Vorthak thought they were fighting a small group of terrorists. They had no idea they were fighting the future of humanity itself. The data core was the size of a human head and glowed with alien symbols. Kyungsoo had stolen it from a destroyed Vorthak command ship during their latest raid. Now he sat in the Reckoning's hidden base, trying to crack its encryption. This is different from the other cores, he told Minji. It has deeper security. Whatever's inside, they really didn't want anyone to find it. Minji watched him work. 3 weeks had passed since they captured the core. 3 weeks of careful analysis and gradual progress through layers of alien code. How much longer? She asked. Soon, Kyungsoo promised. I'm almost through the final barrier. The base was hidden inside an abandoned mining station in deep space. The Reckoning had grown to over 200 active members with thousands more supporters across human space. They needed a secure location to plan their larger operations. Woojin entered the command center, carrying reports from their latest missions. The attack on the shipyard was successful, he said. We destroyed 6 ships under construction and captured their weapon designs. Any casualties on our side? 3 wounded, none dead. But the Vorthak lost 400 people, Minji nodded. Each successful attack proved that humans could fight the Vorthak on equal terms. The enemy was strong, but they were not invincible. Got it! Kyungsoo shouted suddenly. The core is open. Data began flowing across his screens. At first, it looked like standard military information, troop movements, supply lists, tactical reports. But then Kyungsoo found deeper files that made him stop breathing. Minji, he said quietly, you need to see this. She moved to stand behind his chair. On the screen was a file labeled Species Extinction Archive Historical Records. Kyungsoo opened the file. Inside were detailed records of 17 different alien species. All of them were marked as eliminated with dates going back over 1,000 years. They're trophies, Minji whispered. Each record contained the same type of information: initial contact reports, military assessments, invasion plans, extermination progress. Final confirmation of total species death. The Harani had been a peaceful trading civilization. They had welcomed the Vorthak as potential partners. The records showed how the Vorthak studied Harani biology for 3 years before developing a biological weapon that killed every Harani in the galaxy. The Kalsari had been a warrior culture, strong and proud. The records showed how the Vorthak pretended to be allies, gained access to Kalsari worlds, then poisoned their water supplies with slow-acting toxins, species after species. Civilization after civilization, all of them trusting the Vorthak at first. all of them dying in the end. "They've done this before," Nari said in horror. She had joined them at the computer. "They've done this 17 times. But the worst discoveries were yet to come." Kyung-soo found video files buried deep in the archive. Recordings of the final moments of extinct species. The videos showed Vorthak soldiers collecting body parts as souvenirs. They showed Vorthak scientists conducting experiments on living prisoners. They showed Vorthak leaders laughing as they watched entire worlds die. "They enjoy it," Woojin said with disgust. "This isn't just about territory or resources. They enjoy destroying other species." Minji watched video after video, her face growing harder with each one. She saw children being separated from their parents. She saw scientists being forced to develop weapons against their own people. She saw entire civilizations begging for mercy that never came. "Keep looking," she ordered. "Find everything." They worked through the night, uncovering layer after layer of evidence. The Vorthak had turned genocide into an art form. They had developed techniques for breaking the spirit of their victims before killing them. They had created methods for extracting maximum suffering from each death dot in one file. They found records of experiments on captured humans from the New Soul. Minji's hands shook as she read descriptions of what had been done to her crewmates before they died, but the most damning evidence was in a file labeled Galactic Council Communications. The file contained hundreds of messages between the Vorthak Empire and various members of the Galactic Council. The messages went back centuries and revealed a conspiracy that made Minji sick to her stomach. The Council knew. They had always known. Council member after Council member had received reports about missing ships, destroyed colonies, extinct species. They had evidence of Vorthak atrocities going back hundreds of years, but they had chosen to ignore it all. The messages revealed the reasoning behind their inaction. The Vorthak were useful. They eliminated problematic species that caused trouble for the established galactic order. They removed competition for resources. They served as a weapon that the Council could use without taking responsibility. In exchange, the Council provided the Vorthak with protection. They blocked investigations, they suppressed evidence, they made sure that no one could organize effective resistance against Vorthak expansion. "The entire galaxy is corrupt," Yuji said after reading the messages. "Everyone in power is part of this." Minji stood in silence for a long time, processing what they had learned. The scope of the conspiracy was almost impossible to understand. For centuries, the galaxy's leaders had been complicit in genocide. "We need to send this to Admiral Taeyun," Woojin suggested. "This changes everything, does it?" Minji asked quietly. "Will Earth's government really act on this information? Or will they find new excuses to do nothing?" But she agreed to send the data to Taeyun through their secure communication network. If there was any hope of convincing Earth's leaders to act, this evidence would do it. Admiral Taeyun received the data package 3 days later. He spent 48 hours reviewing everything with his most trusted analysts. When he was finished, he looked like a man who had aged 20 years in 2 days. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The Vorthak were not just enemies of humanity. They were enemies of all life in the galaxy. The Galactic Council was not ignorant. They were actively supporting mass murder. Taeyun called an emergency meeting with General Byung-ho and the few Defense Council members he trusted. They gathered in a secure room, far from listening devices and recording equipment. "What we're about to discuss cannot leave this room," Taeyun said. "If this information becomes public, it will cause panic across human space." He presented the evidence methodically: the extinct species, the Council's complicity, the planned extermination of humanity. By the time he finished, everyone in the room understood the reality of their situation. "We're alone," General Byung-ho said simply. "There is no galactic community, there is no justice. There are only predators and prey." "And which are we?" asked one of the council members. "That depends on what we do next," Taeyun replied. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some wanted to present the evidence to the full Defense Council and let democracy decide. Others wanted to release everything to the public and let popular anger force the government to act, but General Byung-ho had a different idea. Democracy is too slow, he said. Public debate is too dangerous. The Vorthak are preparing their final invasion. We need to act now, with or without official approval. You're talking about a military coup, one member pointed out. I'm talking about survival, Byung-ho replied. The current government will debate this evidence for months while the Vorthak finish their preparations. We don't have months. Admiral Tae-yun thought about Minji and the Reckoning. They had been fighting this war for over a year while the government argued about policies and procedures. Maybe it was time for the military to stop asking permission. What are you proposing? He asked. Emergency powers, Byung-ho said. Martial law. A complete mobilization of human military forces. We declare total war on the Vorthak Empire and anyone who supports them. That includes the Galactic Council. Yes, it does. The room was quiet as everyone considered the implications. They were talking about overthrowing their own government. They were talking about declaring war on most of the galaxy. They were talking about betting humanity's entire future on their ability to win a fight against impossible odds, but the alternative was extinction. One by one, they agreed to Byung-ho's plan. The coup would happen in 72 hours. Key government officials would be arrested. Military units loyal to the new regime would secure vital installations. The public would be told the truth about the Vorthak threat, and Minji's Reckoning would finally have the official support they had been fighting without. 3 days later, General Byung-ho appeared on every communication screen in human space. He wore his full military uniform and spoke with calm authority. Citizens of Earth and her colonies, he began. As of this moment, I am assuming emergency powers as military commander of Human Defense Forces. The civilian government has been dissolved due to their failure to protect humanity from an existential threat. He presented the evidence that Minji had died to obtain: the extinct species, the planned invasion, the Council's betrayal. By the time he finished speaking, riots had broken out on a dozen worlds, but the riots were not protests against the coup. They were demands for immediate war against the Vorthak. Humanity had finally learned the truth about the universe. They were alone, surrounded by enemies, facing extinction, but they were also angry. And anger, properly directed, could be more powerful than any weapon the Vorthak had ever faced. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were capable of when they street. Earth had become a different planet in 6 months. Every factory now produced weapons or ships. Every university taught military science. Every child learned to shoot before they learned to read advanced literature. Min-ji stood in the command center of the new war ministry, watching production reports scroll across massive screens. The numbers were staggering. Humanity was building weapons faster than any species in galactic history. The shipyards at New Tokyo completed another 12 destroyers today, reported Commander Sumin. He had been promoted from weapons research to oversee biological warfare development. Total fleet strength is now 4,000 combat vessels. Not enough, Minji said coldly. She wore the black uniform of a war marshal, the highest military rank created by the new government. The Vorthak have been building their fleet for centuries. We've had less than a year. But what humanity lacked in numbers, they made up for in innovation and pure hatred. The new weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Nari had been given unlimited resources to develop her designs. Her plasma bombs could now destroy entire space stations. Her biological weapons could kill Vorthak soldiers in minutes while leaving their equipment intact. Kyung-soo had hacked into every Vorthak computer system in known space. He could read their messages before their own commanders received them. He could turn their own weapons against them with a few keystrokes. Marshal, Woojin entered the command center carrying a tactical report. The hunt fleets are ready to deploy. The hunt fleets were Minji's idea. Instead of waiting for the Vorthak to attack human space, humanity would take the war to them. Small groups of fast ships would seek out Vorthak vessels and destroy them wherever they were found. How many ships per fleet? Minji asked. 20 destroyers, 5 cruisers, and 1 command ship. Each fleet has enough firepower to destroy a Vorthak colony. Good, send them out. I want every Vorthak ship in space running scared. Admiral Taeyun, now serving as Minji's chief advisor, reviewed the deployment orders. Are you sure we should spread our forces so thin? If the Vorthak mass their fleet for a major attack. They won't, Minji interrupted. They're used to picking off isolated targets. They don't know how to fight an enemy that hunts them back. She was right. For the first time in centuries, the Vorthak found themselves on the defensive. Human hunt fleets appeared without warning, destroyed everything in sight, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The psychological effect was devastating. Vorthak ships began traveling in larger groups, making them slower and easier to track. Their colonies demanded military protection, stretching their forces thin. Their trade routes became too dangerous to use. Captain Ariam commanded. Hunt Fleet 7. She had volunteered for the most dangerous missions because her brother had been killed in the New Sol massacre. Her fleet specialized in attacking Vorthak civilian targets. Remember, she told her. Crews before each mission, they showed no mercy to our civilians. We show none to theirs. Her latest target was a Vorthak mining colony called Threx Prime. Intelligence reports said it had 200,000 inhabitants and minimal defenses. The attack began at dawn, local time. Human ships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately began bombardment. Threx Prime had no shields, no weapons, no way to fight back. The massacre lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Threx Prime was a dead world. Every building was destroyed. Every Vorthak was dead. The planet's surface was turned to glass by concentrated plasma fire. Ariam broadcast a message to any Vorthak ships in the area. This is what happens when you kill human children. We do not forget, we do not forgive. Similar attacks happened across Vorthak space. Mining colonies, research stations, civilian transports, everything was a target. The Vorthak began to understand what terror felt like. But the humans were not content to simply destroy Vorthak assets. They wanted to understand their enemy completely. Capture operations brought Vorthak prisoners back to Earth for interrogation. Dr. Soman, the psychiatrist who had once tried to help Minji heal, now used her skills for a different purpose. She broke Vorthak minds with scientific precision, extracting every piece of useful information. They're not as tough as they pretend. She reported to Minji after questioning a captured Vorthak commander. Their society is built on the idea that they're the ultimate predators. When they realize they're actually prey, they collapse mentally. The intelligence gathered from prisoners revealed the locations of secret Vorthak bases, the identities of their leaders, and the details of their invasion plans. But it also revealed something else. The Vorthak were terrified. For the first time in their species' history, they were facing an enemy that matched their brutality. Other species had tried to fight them with honor and dignity. Humans fought with cold calculation and unlimited cruelty. They're calling us demons, Dr. Soman reported with dark amusement. Their word for humans translates roughly to the hungry darkness that devours worlds. Minji smiled when she heard this. Good, fear is a weapon too. The hunt fleets continued their work, but Minji had larger plans. She wanted to find the Vorthak homeworld and end this war permanently. The location of the homeworld was the most closely guarded secret in the Vorthak Empire. But Kangsu had been working on the problem for months, tracing communication patterns and analyzing ship movements. I think I found it, he announced during a strategy meeting. The patterns all point to a system called Krexmar, about 400 light-years from Earth. How certain are you? Minji asked. 90%. All major Vorthak fleet movements originate from that system. All high-priority communications are routed through there. It has to be their homeworld. Minji studied the star charts. Krexmar was deep in Vorthak space, surrounded by military bases and patrol fleets. Attacking it would require most of humanity's naval forces. What's our intelligence on their defenses? She asked. Wujin pulled up detailed reports. Orbital defense platforms, at least 500 warships, planetary shields, surface-to-space missiles. They're expecting us? Let them expect us, Minji said. We're coming anyway. The plan was ambitious beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. Every available ship would be committed to the attack. If they failed, Earth would be defenseless against Vorthek retaliation, but Minji was not interested in half measures. The Vorthak had taught her that survival meant complete victory or total destruction. There was no middle ground. General Byung-ho had concerns about the plan. If we lose our entire fleet at Krexmar, the Vorthek can counterattack Earth directly. This is an enormous gamble. This entire war is a gamble, Minji replied. But consider the alternative. If we don't destroy their homeworld, they'll eventually rebuild their strength and attack us. Better to end this now while we have the advantage. Admiral Taeyan supported the attack, but for different reasons. The Galactic Council is finally starting to pay attention to what we're doing. Some species are calling for intervention to stop human aggression. If we're going to finish this war, we need to do it quickly. The Galactic Council had indeed taken notice of humanity's campaign. Several member species were demanding action to stop what they called human terrorism. Some had threatened to send their own fleets to protect Vorthek worlds. Minji's response to these threats was simple and direct. She sent a message to every government in the galaxy. The Vorthek Empire has committed genocide against 17 species with your knowledge and consent. Any attempt to interfere with our justified response will be considered an act of war against humanity. We have already proven that we can destroy one species. We can destroy more if necessary. The threat worked. No species was willing to risk becoming humanity's next target. The galaxy watched in horrified fascination as humans methodically hunted down their enemies. But time was running out. Intelligence reports suggested that the Vorthek were massing their remaining forces for a desperate counterattack. If humanity was going to strike at Krexmar, it had to be soon. Minji made the final decision on a cold morning in the War Ministry. She looked out at the busy streets of the capital, where humans hurried to work in weapons factories and military offices. These people had trusted her to protect them. They had given her the power to reshape their entire civilization for war. She would not let them down. Send the order, she told her staff. All fleets converge on Krexmar. Begin Operation Final Solution. The irony of the name was not lost on her. The Vorthak had used the same phrase to describe their planned genocide of humanity. Now humans would use it to describe the end of the Vorthak species. As the largest fleet in human history prepared to jump to hyperspace. Minji thought about her family one last time. Jinwoo, Hyeri, and Dongyuk had died believing in peace and friendship. Their deaths had taught her a more important lesson. Sometimes love meant becoming a monster to protect what you cared about. The Vorthak had created their own worst nightmare when they let her live. Now they would pay the final price for that mistake. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Krexmar system like a storm made of metal and fury. 3,000 ships spread across space in perfect formation. Their weapons already charging for battle. Minji stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Vengeance, watching the Vorthak homeworld grow larger on the screen. It was a beautiful planet, covered in green forests and blue oceans. Soon it would be nothing but ash. Enemy fleet detected, reported the tactical officer. 542 ships moving to intercept. They're forming defensive lines around the planet. Launch all fighters, Minji ordered. Begin bombardment of orbital platforms. The space around Krexmar erupted in fire and light. Human plasma cannons struck Vorthak defense stations, turning them into expanding clouds of debris. Vorthak return fire lit up human shields with brilliant flashes, but the humans had advantages the Vorthak had never faced before. King Su had hacked their command systems, making their ships fire on each other. Nari's new weapons burned through Vorthak armor like it was paper. Most importantly, human crews fought with the fury of a species that knew extinction was the only alternative. To victory? Their line is breaking, Admiral Taeyan reported from his position in the Fleet Command Center. Vorthak ships are retreating toward the planet. Don't let them regroup, Minji commanded. I want every enemy ship destroyed before we begin planetary. Bombardment? The battle raged for 8 hours. When it was over, space around Krexmar was filled with wreckage from both fleets. But the humans had won. The Vorthak fleet was destroyed, and the planet lay defenseless before them. General Byung-ho contacted Minji from Earth. Marshal, the Galactic Council is demanding that you stop the attack. They say the destruction of the Vorthak homeworld would be a crime against all civilized species. Minji's laugh was cold and bitter. Civilized species? The same ones who ignored genocide for centuries? Tell the Council they can file their complaints with the dead. She opened the communication channel. To the Vorthak planetary government. The screen showed a reptilian creature wearing ornate robes, its eyes wide with terror. I am War Marshal Minji of the Human Defense Forces, she said calmly. You are responsible for the murder of my family and the planned extinction of my species. Do you have anything to say before I destroy your world? The Vorthak leader's voice shook as it spoke. Please, we can negotiate. We can pay compensation. We can become your servants. Anything but this. My daughter believed in negotiation, Minji replied. She believed aliens could be friends. You killed her for that belief. There will be no negotiation. She cut the communication and turned to her weapons officer. Begin orbital bombardment. I want this planet turned to glass. But before the bombardment could begin, something unexpected happened. 3 massive ships appeared at the edge of the system, bearing the markings of the Galactic Council peacekeeping force. This is Admiral Voss of the Council Fleet, came a transmission. By order of the Galactic Council, you will cease your attack immediately and withdraw from this system. Minji studied the newcomers on her tactical display. 3 battleships with enough firepower to threaten her fleet. The Council had finally decided to act. Admiral Voss, she replied. You are interfering in a justified military operation against a genocidal enemy. Withdraw now or be destroyed. Marshal Minji, we understand your anger, but this massacre must stop. The Vorthak have agreed to pay reparations and accept permanent monitoring. Justice can be served without extinction. Minji's rage flared white-hot. Justice? Where was your justice when the Vorthak murdered 17 species? Where was your monitoring when they planned to exterminate humanity? She turned to Wujin, who commanded the ship's marine forces. How long to reach the planet's surface? 12 hours for a full planetary assault, he reported. But I can have advance teams on the ground in 2 hours. Do it. I want the Vorthak government captured alive. I'll deal with them personally. The Council ships moved closer, their weapons powering up. Marshal, this is your final warning. Stand down immediately or we will be forced to act. Minji's response was swift and devastating. The human fleet turned their weapons on the Council ships without hesitation. Plasma beams and missile salvos overwhelmed the Council vessels' defenses in minutes. Let this be a message to the galaxy, Minji broadcast on all frequencies as the Council ships exploded. Anyone who protects genocidal species will share their fate. The destruction of the Council fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, someone had openly attacked the Galactic Council itself. Species that had remained neutral began to reconsider their positions, but Minji was not finished. She wanted to look into the eyes of the creatures who had killed her family before she ended their species forever. The assault on Krexmar's surface began at dawn. Human marines dropped from orbit in armored transports, their weapons modified with Vorthak technology for maximum lethality. They met fierce resistance from Vorthak ground forces, but human anger proved stronger than Vorthak desperation. Wujin led the assault on the planetary capital personally. His marines fought through the city street by street, showing no mercy. To military or civilian targets, buildings burned. Bodies filled the streets. The proud Vorthak capital became a tomb. 8 hours after the assault began, Wujin's voice crackled over the radio. Marshal, we have secured the government complex. The leadership is captured and waiting for you. Minji took a shuttle to the planet's surface, accompanied by a small guard detail. The capital city was burning around her as she walked through. Streets littered with Vorthak corpses. The government building had once been magnificent, its spires reaching toward the sky like prayers made of stone. Now it was scarred by weapons fire and surrounded by human soldiers. Inside, she found them. 12 Vorthek leaders, the beings responsible for centuries of genocide, cowering in chains before her. "So these are the great predators," she said quietly, studying their faces. "These are the creatures who thought they could exterminate humanity." The eldest Vorthok, their equivalent of a prime minister, looked up at her with reptilian eyes. "You cannot do this," it whispered. "We surrender." "The laws of war, ... What laws?" Minji interrupted. "The laws you ignored when you murdered children? The laws you broke when you planned our extinction?" She drew her sidearm and placed it against the creature's head. "I am not bound by laws that protect monsters," the weapon fired once. Then again. And again, when it was over, the Vorthok leadership lay dead at her feet, but Minji felt no satisfaction. Killing these particular creatures was just a symbol. The real work was still ahead. She walked outside the government building and looked up at the sky where her fleet waited in orbit. Behind her, the capital city burned. Around the planet, human forces were systematically destroying every Vorthek installation. "Begin the final bombardment," she ordered over her communicator dot from orbit. The human fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams carved through the planet's crust. Fusion bombs turned cities into craters. Biological weapons poisoned the atmosphere itself. Minji watched it all from the surface, protected by her environmental suit as the planet died around her. She thought about her daughter's journal, filled with hopes for interspecies friendship. She thought about her son's curiosity about alien technology. She thought about her husband's faith in peaceful exploration. They had all died because they believed the universe was better than it actually was. They had died because they trusted. Creatures that viewed kindness as weakness, but their deaths had not been meaningless. Their deaths had taught her the truth about survival. The strong lived, the weak died. There was no middle ground. The bombardment continued for 3 days. When it was over, Krexmar was a dead world. The oceans had boiled away. The atmosphere was poison. Nothing lived on its surface. "Final report," Admiral Tayan requested over the communication system. "Mission accomplished," Minji replied. "The Vorthek homeworld is destroyed. Estimated survivors, 0. But destroying the homeworld was not enough. There were still Vorthek colonies scattered across the galaxy, military bases, hidden installations, ships that had escaped the battle. "Signal all hunt fleets," Minji ordered. "Begin systematic search and destroy operations. I want every Vorthek in the galaxy found and eliminated." The hunt that followed lasted 6 months. Human ships scoured every corner of known space, following intelligence gathered from captured databases and interrogated prisoners. No Vorthek settlement was too small, no ship was too fast. No hiding place was too remote. One by one, the remaining Vorthek strongholds fell. Their military bases were turned to rubble. Their colonies were reduced to ash. Their ships were hunted down and destroyed in the emptiness between stars, species across. The galaxy watched in horrified fascination as humanity demonstrated what total war actually meant. This was not conquest for territory or resources. This was extermination as an art form. The last Vorthek died on a mining station at the edge of the galaxy. A single family that had been working the asteroid belts when their homeworld burned. Human Marines found them hiding in a maintenance tunnel and executed them without ceremony. "Final report from Hunt Fleet 12, came the transmission. "Last known Vorthek eliminated. Species extinction confirmed." Minji received the report in her office at the war. 1 year after the last Vorthek died, Supreme Commander Minji stood before the memorial wall in the capital city. 2,847 names were carved into black stone, each one representing a life lost when the new soul was destroyed. At the bottom of the wall, in smaller text, were the final casualty numbers from the war. 47 billion Vorthek eliminated. 200 human colonies expanded into former Vorthek territory. 0 surviving enemy combatants. Minji placed her hand on her daughter's name. "I kept my promise, Hayeri," They can't hurt anyone anymore. Behind her, the city hummed with activity. Earth had become the undisputed center of galactic power. Human fleets patrolled every major trade route. Human marines occupied former Galactic Council stations. Human governors ruled over dozens of species that had once considered themselves humanity's superiors. Supreme Commander Admiral Taeyun approached from behind. The new Galactic Assembly is ready to convene. They're waiting for your opening address. Minji nodded but didn't turn away from the memorial. How many species sent representatives? 47. All the major powers except the Kalari Federation and the Nexus Republic. And where are their representatives? Dead, Taeyun replied simply. They chose to resist rather than submit to human authority. The transformation of galactic civilization had been swift and brutal. After the destruction of the Vorthok Empire, several species had tried to unite against human expansion. They called it the Free Galaxy Alliance and spoke bravely about defending democracy and freedom. Their bravery lasted exactly 3 months. Human hunt fleets had turned their worlds into monuments to the price of resistance. Now their territories were administered by human colonial governors who showed no tolerance for dissent. The assembly members are nervous, Taeyun continued. They've never seen a galactic government run by a single species before. They'll adapt, Minji said coldly. Or they'll join the Vorthok in extinction. She finally turned away from the memorial and walked toward the government complex. The building had been expanded twice in the past.